And as you settle in, feel the weight of your body, the legs, the pelvis, the torso, and even the weight of your head. It's noticing the density of your body and how it helps ground us into the earth. And from that density, from that centered, grounded place, notice the breath. And without trying to shape it in any way, notice the lightness and the ease and the freedom. These two energies balance each other every single moment of every single day. This upward moving energy and the downward moving energy to help us feel stable and light. Coming back together today after a week of separation for some of us. And taking that moment of gratitude for being on the mat together, being part of community. Turning the palms open, energetically expanding the front body. Inhale, lifting the arms up over your head, palms come together. And as you exhale, hands come to the heart center. Pause here for your own intention. And then after your next exhale, release your hands and softly open the eyes. Good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to work with the spring energy. We're still in spring. We still have this Kaphic nature of spring, you know, the mud. Somebody was mentioning mud earlier, and this density. But the energy of spring moves us into summer and much more activity, as we all know if you've been gardening and out in the world. So we're going to start lying down first, and then we'll move gradually into more and more of an active state. So let's start on our backs. You know, to have your props around you. We'll start lying down, just full Shavasana for a moment. Okay, full Shavasana. Palms open, body resting, legs down. Just take a moment and feel and sense this density of what we call a body, bones, muscles, organs. And then noticing that lightness of the breath and that ease and the flow of the breath. Becoming aware of anything that's present. And I like to remind you not to make a story around what's present, just become aware. Our first pose is, I'll call it half baby pose. You're going to take your right knee and bring it towards your chest. Your options here are to support your shin with your hands and letting the arms get heavy and draw the knee towards you, or letting the hands come under the knee and drawing the leg towards you. What I'd like to support you with is not working the arms too much. Let the arms feel heavy. Let the leg draw inward towards the chest. You might even notice that it goes a little bit off to the side. That's fine. And take a resting first place here. And go back to just noticing the breath and the body. Following this natural energy of spring, this ebb and flow where one day feels a little muddy and heavy and rainy, and another day feels breezy and light and joyous. And there's this back and forth that happens in this transition time of spring. And so just noticing that kind of energy in our body. One day we feel really up and light and energetic, and maybe the next day or the next part of the day we feel a little bit low in our energy or dense or heavy. And this is a natural part of being a human, living with nature and being part of nature. So I like to have the idea of curiosity. What's happening now? Finding the stillness so that we can sense and feel what's happening now. And you'll notice things, noises, maybe people walking around the house, maybe other other things that are drawing your attention. Try to stay present. Don't get pulled away. Letting each inhale invite this expansion, this energy, this freedom, and each exhale allowing for that sense of groundedness, that sense of centering. Now go ahead and put that leg down and switch your sides. Remember to release it slowly. Let it slide all the way down on the floor, and then just move right to the left side. So we think of this pose, this very simple shape that we're putting in. It addresses the hips and the lower back and part of the thigh. It's also very grounding, very dense, very heavy. Feeling the weight of the arms and the softness of the jaw. Maybe the space of the lower back as it moved toward the floor. And as you might contemplate this idea of spring, and many of us are out either enjoying nature or planting gardens or planting flowers, there's this energy of growth, energy of movement. You can feel it in the temperature in the air. You can feel it and see it with plants and blooming. You can even notice this breeze that's pretty much always constant right now. And our bodies are just like that. And so can you notice and sense any movement within your own body? Even though you look still, there is so much more going on. All right, last 2 minutes, I want you to bring both knees to the chest. Again, you can hold your knees together and wrap your hands around and hold your hands, or you can separate your knees, let your knees be apart, whatever naturally feels good to your body. And then I want to just caution you to not pull and work your arms. Your arms are part of the weight that are holding your legs in place. Some of you might go into happy baby right away where your feet are up and you're holding your ankles to your feet. Feel free to do that. Remember that there's less effort and more being. Less doing, more being. And as we create space in the body by this gentle but profound practice, we feel better. We almost don't even know why. We just feel better. Less discomfort, less tension, less achiness, more mobility. We create space in our mind. We feel calmer. We have more ease. We feel more centered. Now go ahead and release your legs. Put your feet down on the floor. Our next pose is still on the back. We're going to move to banana, which is legs down and kind of making that banana shape with our body. So if there's anything that you need to do before we do that, please do that. You might feel like you need to readjust your pelvis or maybe put something underneath your body. Okay. And this one, when you feel ready, you keep your pelvis steady. It doesn't move. And you move your feet over to the right side of your mat. Now, they don't have to be together. Your legs do not have to touch, but you want enough sensation so that you can feel something happening in the left side of the body. If you want to hook your feet, right leg over left kind of stabilizes and holds you in place. Left leg over right makes the stretch a little deeper. Decide. And then walk your head and shoulders a little bit over to the right until you start to feel sensation. And the last option is to take your arms up over your head, maybe hold your wrist, your left wrist with your right hand, or maybe your elbows. And turn your head, ideally to the right, but it could go either way. And then on your next exhale, let your body feel heavy and dense. Feeling and sensing into the whole left side of the body. Keeping the left hip heavy, the left shoulder heavy. If your arms are up, please note if you start to have any tingling in your shoulders or your arms. If that starts to happen, please bring your arms down. And so, as I was saying earlier, when you create space in your body, we just feel better. The tightness and the tensions that we feel in our body are from lack of space, either in our fascia or in our ligaments or our joints. And when we create space in the mind, we feel calmer and more centered and grounded. And this happens when we become still. Because the mind doesn't have so much to do. And when we create space in our physical surroundings, we feel more organized. We feel more flow. And all of that together increases energy. And the energy within us and the energy all around us. I have a friend that lives in New York City. She's an interior designer, and her whole shtick is creating a sacred space for creating a sacred life. And if your space around you isn't optimal for you, it affects how you live in the world. That's her whole work ethic. And I know I feel better when I organize my space. Take a nice deep breath. And as you're ready, start to bring yourself back to the center of your mat. You might bend your knees and maybe adjust yourself a little bit before going to the other side. Do what feels intuitively good to your body. And then as you feel ready, we'll move to the opposite side. So feet move, legs move over to the left. Doing the same thing that you did before, making a decision about, do the legs need to be relaxed and open, or do the legs need to be crossed, and how? And then letting your body, your upper body, shoulders and head kind of wiggle over to the left, creating the banana-like shape in your body, finding sensation in the right side now. And then deciding about the arms, maybe coming over your head, turning your head towards the left. And once you've made all those decisions, take that nice inhale, and as you exhale, feel the weight of your body settling into the floor, settling into that grounding energy. Noticing and sensing the breath and anything that's going on in the body. You can even send the breath and the prana to the areas where you're noticing sensation. Remember, prana rides on the breath. And where the breath flows, energy flows. And as we travel through this class, through this hour, you'll start to notice that your body and your mind feel calmer, tapping into that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest nervous system. Staying curious as to what's going on in this internal movement, that, like the spring energy, there's always something happening in this transitional time. Go ahead and take a nice deep breath. And as you feel ready, start to move back to the center of the mat. Take a moment to transition out of that pose, maybe with bent knees, maybe knees to chest. Maybe you'll even feel like you want to lift your hips up. And as you feel ready, we'll move to the next pose, which is a child's wide-kneed child's pose position. We're going to move into a twist here. So a couple of things to remind you of. I think you all know how to take care of yourself, but blankets under knees is really nice if you're not padded like I am. Blankets or bolsters behind your legs. If you feel like your hips don't want to go all the way back, put something behind you so they can rest. And then stay up on your hands so that your head is higher than your hips. Now, the last transition that you can make is to take a bolster or a blanket. I happen to have this bolster right here, so I'll show you with this. And you take your right hand and scoop it underneath your left arm and slide it along as far as you can until you feel like you can rest your shoulder and your head down. Now, I'm showing you with a bolster because it's an easier action if my body is lifted off the floor. Wiggle your left hand forward, fingertips reaching, fingertips on both hands reaching, maybe turning the chest open a little bit. And then, of course, if the bolster or the blanket just feel like they're in your way, you could probably rest on the floor. And you'd find your edge, that sweet spot. And it's not too little and it's not too hard. Just right. Giving you sensations in the body, tensions in the body. Breathing into the sensations. And this one, you might notice a lot in your upper body, around your thoracic spine and around your rib cage. But it could be anywhere. And of course, your top arm, that left arm, can be extended, or if it bothers your shoulder, just let it relax. This is such a wonderful shape to put your body in, to really get into the juicy spots of that upper body, shoulders, back, rib cage, spine. Just there's a lot of density here in our body. And you might notice that when you go into these shapes, it would be like, wow, this is a little bit tough. And we're about halfway through, so if you feel like you want to move your top arm behind you to open up your shoulder a little bit more, it might be something to try. Again, remember, you don't have to do any of that. Great. And we become curious and interested around what's happening within our own physical form. What's happening now, as my good friend Michael Lee likes to ask. And take one nice deep breath here. And then as you feel ready, slowly, slowly unwind yourself. Bring yourself back into that upright position. If you feel like there's a lot of pressure on the knees and you need a moment, come to downward facing dog or stretch one leg out behind you to open up the back of the knees. As you feel ready, we'll try the other side. So as the head stays up, left hand under right arm, slide the left hand as far forward as you can, and then let the left shoulder and head release down. Again, you can always put a blanket or a bolster under your shoulder and head. The right arm can stay relaxed. It can stay reaching, reaching, reaching. Stay there for the first part of this pose. Let your hips get heavy. One of the things about using the props is if you happen to have tightness or around the knees and hips, or your hips won't go back down and rest on something, if you put something behind you, your body feels a little bit more contained. You're not just floating around in space. And when that happens, the body has a greater possibility of releasing, unwinding, softening. And I like this idea of being rather than doing. This is one of the very few times that you're given permission to not do anything, but allow the body to respond to your shape or your position. Okay, you can change your arm position if you like here. Maybe take that arm behind your back, opening up your top shoulder a little bit. You might try to just allow the top shoulder to like lay in your lower back and let the fingertips kind of travel to the left side of the body. Not in an aggressive way, but just in a curious, like, where does my shoulder feel like it could go? And just a little aside, if you're short-waisted like I am, you actually have less ability to turn and move. If you're longer-waisted, you have more freedom. And so a lot of times these shapes are, we fall into a shape because of how we're put together. Breathing into sensation. Letting go of doing. And take a nice deep breath. And slowly making your way out of that shape. Again, if you feel like you need a little bit of a break from your knees, one leg stretch, or maybe downward facing dog, opening up the back of the legs, feeling a full body stretch. The next one is going to be kneeling also, so give yourself a moment if you need it. Now this next shape we're going in is a kneeling lunge. And I want to remind you of what you could do with your knee, especially if you don't want to kneel on it, right? So you know you can put your knee on something, okay? That always feels okay. But you can also move the knee forward so that the kneecap itself is floating and you're on your shin. And when you come forward into this kneeling lunge, there's no pressure on the knee joint itself. And this might feel really, really good to you. So try it if you think you need it. And if you have blocks nearby, please grab them. You don't have to have them, but they're nice to use here. Once you're set up, knee floats over ankle. And here's an interesting thing. Nothing's going to happen if your knee travels past the ankle, especially if the heel stays down. What can happen here is as the knee travels forward, you can actually pull on the fascia from your heel up through your Achilles and calf, which can be really, really tight for a lot of people. What I would suggest you don't do is bring your foot so far back that when your knee comes forward, your heel comes off the floor. So adjust yourself, but know that you don't have to keep your knee over your ankle. Hands are close to where your shoulders are so that you're looking forward for this first round here. Eyes forward and relaxed. Pelvis moving toward the floor. Nice support with your back leg if you need it. Arms should be straight here so that you feel bone holding you rather than muscle. Soft shoulders, soft gaze, breathing. Again, become curious about what's going on. This is a much more active pose. You might find that you're wanting to do a little bit more. Very common. Remember, there's that sweet spot. So in this kind of pose, we're working with the weight of our body against gravity. And as we do that, the body, it can actually go a little bit too much. And so you have to use a little discernment here about how far you're going to let that pelvis drop. Now, the second part of this pose, if you want it, you're welcome to stay right where you are. But I'm going to suggest that you're going to take the block that you have on the outside of your foot to the inside, walk your foot off to the side, turn it open a little. So now we're going to do this lunge with the knee out to the side. So more lizard-like. And in this one, you might turn the blocks down a little so that your body's a little lower. You might get rid of the blocks altogether. So finding where we can hold this for another couple minutes. And breathe. Now I find when I'm practicing yin on my own, each single day and each single shape is always different depending on what's in my head, what kind of night I've had, what kind of activity I've been doing. And so just note, just like the spring and this transitional time and things are always moving, that this can happen for you in your practice. And it's much more noticeable when you're in a quiet practice like yin. Again, remember discernment. That back leg is going to feel a lot of activity in the hip flexor front of the pelvis area. So really use discernment here. Don't bail, just back up a little bit if it starts to feel a little too much. We've got one more little transition here. Yep, right now. So you can stay where you are, or you can leave your left hand on the block of the floor. Take your right hand to your top thigh and rotate and look behind you. Again, you can get rid of the blocks altogether. You can let this knee move open more. You can follow your movement of your body with your gaze and then soften it. Now, this is a one-arm supported action, and this might feel like, whoa, that's way too much. So just go back to the other one. We're moving from stillness into more upward moving energy, following this theme, this idea of spring and movement. Being curious as to what's happening now. Noticing how much work you might be doing in your arms. Noticing how much you might think you have to be a certain place or shape. Let go of all of that and just be. Take a nice deep breath. And then as you exhale, slowly now, slowly starting to move out of your posture, out of that shape. 2 hands come back to the floor if you were all the way there. Bring your front leg to your back leg. And then take a moment for adjustment. You might want to just sit quiet and get off your hands. You might want to do downward facing dog. Find a shape that's going to help expand and open and help rebalance you for the next side. Because you know there's another side, right? There's another side. This is probably the hardest one we're doing. So just note that. And then as you feel ready, we're going to set up for the other side. So same thing, please. Left foot comes forward. Blocks are on the outside of your left foot and on the other side. Pad your knee as you need to. And then drawing your pelvis forward, letting your knee travel wherever it wants to travel, tracking it right over the direction of the feet. And I almost like to bring my foot back a little bit because I am very short in my Achilles tendon and I can tend to be tight around that lower calf area. So that actually feels kind of good. Remember that yin is all about what you're feeling, less about what the shape looks like. So guidance on how to move into the shape, support you in the shape, but then go with your intuitive knowing, that deep knowing of, oh, this is right, this feels good. A couple of weeks back, I talked about body wisdom and having a dialogue with your body. Like, hey, how does this feel? How are we doing? Do I need to adjust? An interesting concept, but it's very profound if we can allow ourselves to trust our body. Our body never, ever brings us to the wrong direction. Gives us lots of good feedback if we're still enough, quiet enough to listen. Just noticing any efforting in your shoulders, any desire to do the pose, create a deeper action. Now you're welcome again to stay right here. Or if you want to transition, move your pelvis back just enough so that you can move your block to the inside of your foot and walk your foot open. Put the foot on an angle and then come back to the lunge position with the knee open. On this one, if you're using blocks, you might turn the blocks down or get rid of them altogether. It just depends on your pelvis and your range of motion. Remember that we're not going for the big stretch. We're going for that first sensation, wherever it happens to be. I love this lunge series, even though it can be a little challenging, because if you're still, you might really notice some depth of movement in the torso, specifically around the abdomen, because the muscles that are being stretched, tension being put on them, winds around the pelvis and through the abdomen and into the lower back. Remember, everything's connected, right? This inner thigh of the front leg, if you're noticing the stretch there, is connected to the oblique muscles of the torso, the ones that help us twist. Remember to use discernment If your pelvis starts to feel like it's too much, just move it back a hair and see, oh, that feels better. I can stay there now. And then one last little transition. You can stay here if you like, or put your weight in your right hand. Left hand comes to your thigh, and then rotate and look around behind you, moving from your pelvis through your torso and through your neck and head. Again, finding the edge without going into work, doing. Again, reminding you this is a one-arm supported posture, so it might feel like it's too much. Feel free to back away if it is. Each one of these little transitions are 2-minute holds, just like in the beginning when we were doing the 2-minute holds for the lunge. Breathing into sensation. Breathing into and being curious around anything that's happening and how this side is different from the other side. Remember that a lot of our fascia is located around the joints of the body, so knees, ankles, pelvis, spine, which is why we feel so much in those areas. Take a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, carefully now, slowly starting to move your way away from that posture. Come back to center, move your blocks away. Maybe do downward facing dog, maybe do child's pose to rest. Maybe lay down on your back for a moment or sit still. There's 2 ways to transition from pose to pose. One is to do what we call rebounding, or sort of a counter action. And the other is just to sit quiet and listen and pay attention to what your body is feeling and sensing. And then as you feel ready, we're going to move to sitting. And as we move to sitting, we're going to work a little bit differently with the body. So feel free to sit up on a blanket if you like. Our first pose is what I'm going to call half straddle. So one leg out to the side, one leg bent. This bent leg can be wherever you want it to be. I can do it with my foot against my leg. And that's, kind of a good gauge, because I don't want this leg way out here. So both of these legs are in the same kind of angle, if you will. And then take a nice deep breath. And then as you exhale, just start to move forward. Now, a couple of options. You know what you can do. You could maybe take a bolster or your blocks and rest. This one will feel really good to you after what we were just doing. Nice counterbalance to the opening of the front body. Feeling the heaviness of your sitting bones and the heaviness of your legs. Heaviness of your torso as you notice the gravitational action. You can let go of your head, or you can put your head in your hands. Keep the inward attention, noticing the flow and the movement internally. Again, the quieter you become, the easier it is for your mind to become quiet. Take a nice deep breath here. And slowly sit up. And we're going to just transition to the other side. So other leg goes out straight. Not taking a lot of time in between. And as you transition, just come right back to that forward position. And we're on the other side. And so it might feel different. Just note that. Letting your breath soften. Maybe bringing your breath towards any area that you're feeling sensation. And I love this idea of creating space in your body, in your mind, and in your external environment for increased prana, increased flow, increased movement. So we feel more spacious. Okay, take a breath and start to slowly come up. The last bit here is to take two legs out. So full straddle. Again, you don't have to go to your widest position, but go to a place where you know you're going to feel sensation and then come forward again. If there's a lot of sensation in your lower back, remember to come back a little bit, move away from that deep forward fold, or bring your legs closer together. We don't want an isolated sensation anywhere. We want the that sensation of stretch, you want to use that word, or tension, all over in different places. Like you might notice it in your legs or in your inner thighs or in your back or in your buttocks. If you're letting your head go, you might notice it in your shoulders and neck. Early on when I started teaching Yin, I remember two terms that I found really helpful in this practice. And one was the idea of tension. Like you're feeling tension, there's something happening. You wouldn't really label it pain, but there's just sensation and tension put on the tissue on purpose to create a response. And then there's something called compression. which typically will translate into isolated discomfort moving towards pain. Compression usually means that something's pushing against something that's not going to move, like a bone on bone. Which is why I caution you to stay away from that isolated area, because it can be compression. And that is never going to be a good thing. But be curious and almost excited around this idea of like, wow, I feel this in my knee. Now I feel it in my lower back on the right side. And then I feel it in my shoulders. This beautiful practice of yin, unwinding and softening the tissues so that we ultimately have more flow. Take a nice deep breath. Slowly make your way up. Now I'm going to give you two options here. We're at the end of class, so Shavasana, very much if you want to. The other thing you can do, because the energy was moving from on the floor to upright, is you could sit and just sit upright and do a short meditation. Whatever feels what you need, please do. So if you're sitting upright in meditation, set yourself in a place where your legs feel really rooted and comfortable. I'm sitting up on a blanket just because that's my comfort area, with maybe letting the palms be open. And of course, if you're lying down and doing Shavasana, palms open, body supported in any way that you like. Okay, so just once you're ready, take a nice deep breath, close your eyes. Let the exhale help you feel heavy, settled and grounded. Soft jaw, soft throat, open heart. Take a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, if you're lying in Shavasana, please start to gently move and stretch. Bringing yourself back into your body and back into your space. If you're seated, just remain quiet. As you feel ready, you can bend your knees. Gently roll into your right side. And find your way to sitting. Allow your hands to come together at your heart center, holding your practice, your presence, and your beautiful inner light. May our light always shine brightly, and may we always see the light in each other. Namaste. Yay!